Welcome to the Building Master Builders podcast, brought to you by Master Builders Victoria. Since 1875, we've championed high standards and supported professionals across the building and construction industry. This series is all about empowering people to build a better future, with expert insights, practical advice, and real-world experience. In this episode, we're diving into the world of building permits, what they are, why they matter, and how recent changes in Victoria are shaping the way builders work. Joining us today is Steve Peluso, a multi-award-winning builder with over 30 years of experience and Managing Director of Peluso Group. Steve shares practical insights on navigating the permit process, understanding mandatory inspections, and common pitfalls, all from the perspective of someone who's seen it all from the ground up. Whether you're a seasoned builder or just starting out, this conversation will help you stay informed, compliant, and confident on your next project. Thanks for joining us today, Steve.
Thanks, Sam, for having us.
Perhaps as a way of getting started, could you perhaps tell us a bit more about your experience in the construction industry or your journey to where you are today?
Well, the journey started off with a little bit of an interesting one, where I remember looking at with my father and looking at some construction sites when I was younger, and believe it or not, I couldn't speak till I was 6 years old, so, so they thought I was a mute. But so that's a true story. And anyhow, so from there, you know, I didn't do the best at school, especially with, I think I'm a Gen X, Generation X. So it makes it a bit tough those days, and it was so from there I did a different couple of things and ended up in the construction industry. So from there I worked at Jennings, I worked at Henley doing some frames there, and those were the hard days. And then from there, I remember and then in there also we started doing a few assessments and working for a number of insurance companies doing some fires and all that type of stuff.
Okay.
But then from there, so I started to get a really good understanding of compliance and regulations, especially when I went into that corporate sector, and it was all about the, when a property had a fire or a flood or something like that.
So about like insurance, remedy or renovation after fix up after some sort of insurance.
That's right. And then from there, there was an opportunity to even broaden that experience and go into insolvency and rectification works. Back then it was a housing guarantee fund, which, funny enough, we've sort of gone back to that era now. And then from there, the company that I took over specialised in the insolvency work and picking up where a builder had left off. And so I've seen
how tough projects in there.
Yeah,
you're not sure what's happened to date and trying to join those dots.
So the biggest issue that when you're taking over another builder's project and that builder's been insolvent or in liquidation is the permit.
Yep.
People forget about the permit. So it's about building a relationship with that building surveyor because they're a key factor. And if you want to take over at frame stage or slab stage, you have to heavily rely on what's been already inspected and passed and designed and etc. So from that point onwards, I started getting a fairly good name in the industry regarding that side of it. So I've seen it all, and here I am today.
Something, I guess, an important takeaway message already from that is that you're talking about the role of the building surveyor. Now that dynamic between builder and building surveyor has changed over the last couple of years, where previously the builder was picking who the surveyor was that would be issuing that permit. Now that's with the client.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you can't form a really strong and positive partnership, really, or relationship with that building surveyor too. Because you have to work together to get this project over the line.
Yeah, and especially when you're taking over from a project that's midstream. So that is very, the relationship that you have to build is very strong. And I've seen it go south. with a lot of builders and a lot of clients with the building surveyor.
What happens when it goes south?
Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I've seen it where building surveyors have deceased, retired, moved offshore, and we've got a permit in play. So what do you do?
What do you do?
Well, that's back. It's about obviously trying. Well, firstly, once that happens, you have to approach council, get approval from the council to ask if they can take it over, and then you have to obviously. I can't remember the forms, but you have to submit application to back then the VBA prior to the 1st of July this year, I think it was.
The Building and Plumbing Commission.
Or the Building Commission back then, and then the VBA. So there was a huge process and frustration and a lot of admin work that had to be put in to get even an acknowledgement or appoint another building surveyor, because the building surveyors aren't interested in looking at taking over someone else's permit. They're just not. And, you've probably got some of the older guys that in the industry that have been around for a long, long time, and they understand that, and there's probably one or two that I can think of that would actually take over, but they still need all the, the T's crossed and the I's dotted for them to continue with someone else's permit.
Now, you've worked across a really broad range of projects. You identified a few at the start there. Do all of those projects require a building permit?
Well, yes, in Victoria, and we're talking Victoria.
Yes.
So that's a good question, because there's argument, and only this morning I was talking to a client regarding, I've got a bathroom and we've got to do waterproofing. Does it require a permit? And then yesterday I was on talking to another client regarding a kitchen. Now, the kitchen had to have one wall removed, but it wasn't a supporting wall, but the argument is, well, it's part of a structural wall. So, yes, as soon as there's a structural component, it has to have a permit.
Yep. And
a lot of homeowners aren't unaware of this.
And I guess if there's any grey, how do you find out, or how do you make that determination?
Well, that's the VBA used to be a very good point of contact in the Building Commission, but today I would recommend any members you contact your association. But look, at the end of the day, you would contact the council and the building surveyor for that council.
They're the ones that are making the determination.
Right. It's just a phone call or an email to that department, and then at least you got it in writing. And if they say, no, you don't need a permit, well, so be it.
I guess taking a step back, what exactly is a building permit? Why is it important?
Well, the building permit is to protect the consumer, and it's to ensure that there's a compliance issue, and it's built to the building regs and the Act. A lot of homeowners get the two, planning permit and building permit, mixed between the two. And a planning permit is totally different. That's for fences and overshadowing or heritage overlay or something like that, where a building permit is completely different.
Now, are there types of construction or renovation projects in Victoria that may not require a building permit?
It probably goes back to that structural component.
Yep.
We contact the council or a association, i.e. Tony, or RBSs that we know that say, hey, does this require a permit in your view?
Yep.
And look, majority of them are fairly honest and they will walk through the process, because it's about, as soon as there's a structural component, bang, it triggers.
Yep. It's generally a good prompter, and it might be one that's required there.
And it's not about the value, it's about the structural component.
Right.
Because some people say, oh yeah, well, I keep the value under 16K. That's warranty, that's a DBI, that's a separate issue.
Is that a common misconception?
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
So my project is X amount, I don't need a building permit.
That's right.
There's other factors to consider.
That's right.
If there's any doubt, that's where it's important to surround yourself with the right people who can point you in the right direction.
That's right.
and getting the advice from perhaps the building surveyor or the local council too about what years
an
it was.
RBS, yeah.
Yep. Can you talk us through some of the typical steps involved in obtaining a building permit?
Well, obtaining a building permit, as you're well aware now, we can't recommend a surveyor.
Yep.
So, which has put a little bit of a disconnect between the builder and, let's say, the good builders and the good RBSs. There's obviously the reason why they've done it is to protect the consumer, and it was all to do with a handful of people probably doing the wrong thing a number of years ago. So it's bitten all the good builders on the bottom now.
And that might be because having worked for a while and there's building surveyors that you've worked with on previous projects, and you've got a pretty good built some rapport over time.
That's right.
And understand the systems that both parties are operating within.
Yep. So a lot of RBSs, the frustrating part at the moment that we have, and not just ourselves, but the designers, architects, is that no two RBSs checklist is pretty much the same. So there's inconsistency. So the client will spend $10,000-$15,000 on a design, hoping that it's all correct, ready to go, and it gets issued to the building an RBS of their choice, which is fine, and that's what's supposed to happen. But then the RBS will come through with a 4-page checklist saying you haven't done this and this and this and this and this, where I've seen it a lot of the times where the architect or the designer has actually put the information on the plans, but the RBS aren't checking the plans properly. And the larger RBSs, they've got clerks or admin staff just going through a simple tick system, which holds up the process as well. So we're finding at the moment to get a permit, if let's say that you're a client and you'll want us to use your RBS, that's fine. We're finding anywhere between 14 days to 60 days for a permit.
That's quite a range.
Yeah, so it depends on what's missing off the documentation. And some surveyors are really good and they're happy to take on criticism and also communication from the architect or designer. Some you can't even get hold of. So there's a disconnect from a few within the industry, which is challenging at the moment.
Are there some tips that you can give to, say, other builders or their clients about being proactive with that building permit process to remove some of those challenges?
As soon as you engage an architect or designer, engage a RBS. Have a chat to an RBS and make sure that the two are talking, communicating. Sign that authority up front with an RBS. That makes things go a lot smoother. So that's
why is that?
Again, the owner starts to build a rapport with the RBS. Because you've got to remember they're there to police and protect that consumer and ensure that documentation in a builder is doing everything as per the regs and contracts and plans.
And if they're coming in right at the start, then as the plans or all the documentation
build the foundation.
Developed,
build the foundation, and that foundation includes your Rio, your concrete, your set out, etc. So no different. Build the foundation with your designer, your builder, your RBS, and you'll just find it just goes a bit smoother.
At what stage of the process do you or does a builder get involved with, speaking with the client and the RBS and the designer?
It depends on, we diverse in a number of areas. So we have, a new home division, we have insolvency division, we have an insurance division, commercial as well. So it really depends on, but I mean, I can't speak for the project home builders, but the process is simple there. They've got, the plans and the the architect and so forth.
Got that methodology well refined.
So that's right.
Say someone's trying to work it out for themselves, or they're a growing business perhaps. Are there some practical steps that they could be taking?
And network with RBSs as much as you can. And it's not to recommend them to your clients. It's to have them there for In case you ever need some recommendations or you need some advice on something, if you can build a relationship with a number of RBSs, I think it's the best thing for any builder. And again, it's not about putting them forward to clients because we can't do that. But it's about saying, and it is when the client comes to, most of them don't know any RBSs. And, us as builders, we can say, look, there's several of them there. Those 7 are fairly good. You take your choice.
Yep.
So there's that.
Go and meet. Contact them. See.
Yeah. We've got a number of projects at the moment at any given time where it's at design stage and the client's already talking to the RBS.
Are there any tools or strategies perhaps to simplify the process? Or is it there's so much system behind it that it's hard to?
Yeah. Look, the mums and dads size builders is probably one process. Then you've got your SMEs that are a little bit and different process. And then you've got your larger project home builders. It's a different process. And then you've got your tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3 commercial builders that have, a different process. They've got their, all in-house procurement and admin people that actually solely and wholly deal with, the RBSs and council and all the regs.
So it sounds like it can certainly be a challenge then for a small business where they're trying to not just build the house, but go out and win future work and also deal with all that, the admin side of things too. But I guess we keep coming back to the importance of communication and building that rapport with your RBS, having a really good dynamic with your client too.
Mm-hmm. And that helps, that rapport that they have with the RBS and you as a builder. It actually cements your relationship with that client, and it's part of the journey for them.
Yeah. So perhaps when you're looking at, feel free to correct me here, but when you're looking at or talking to clients about potential projects, having an understanding about who they're engaging or have engaged as the RBS, and starting on that dynamic, that building that rapport.
I call it a journey.
Yep.
And it's a combined team.
Yep.
Once you've built that team, the mistakes are less.
Yep.
We're all human. We all will make some mistake, but it just makes the process a little bit easier. And we've had it where the building surveyors said, "Oh, look, everything's fine, but guys, you forgot to send me this document. So if you can send that," and they've been proactive and say, "If you send me this certificate for waterproofing, I can sign everything off."
Yep.
Or, "No, we're not happy with this. Can you make sure that your supplier amends it as per what it's supposed to be?"
Yep.
So that instead of sitting on it,
being in limbo, and not sure what's
thinking,
happening.
well, what's happening? I want to get paid. I want my final payment and so forth. So that is a big, bonus.
Now, it's not just all about applying for the building permit. There are some inspections that happen along the way.
Yep.
Too. Can you give us a bit of an insight into perhaps some of the mandatory inspections and what role they play?
Yeah. On a new home, there's the your foundation, your steelwork and frame and completion. I believe this, if there's any RBSs out there, they're going to hate me on this. I believe that there should be a couple more. And this is where a lot of builders will disagree with me. I think they don't get paid enough. RBSs don't get paid enough for the risk that they take.
Yep.
And from, if they can get it wrong, and us as a builder can have somewhere to go back to if we have to, and we can prove that there's some wrongdoing there. But I think, again, that relationship that you build at the start, after your client has engaged with the RBS and signed the authority and all that type of stuff, it limits problems.
Are there steps that a builder should be taking to prepare for those mandatory inspections, or is it different for everyone?
Look, it's different for everyone, and it's different for every job, because a surveyor, might only have X amount of inspections on a renovation. Apart from your normal foundation frame, that type of thing. But there might be one or two extra ones that they'd require. So it really depends. And the other thing too that we've noticed is that a lot of the regional building jobs in regional, a lot of us builders are restricted to how many RBSs are out there.
Yeah. Geographically,
yeah, which is a challenge as well. And then when you're calling up for an inspection, a lot of RBSs use external contractors as inspectors to do their check-in on site. So we've come across where, the inspector's been this morning and, the guys might have missed them by 5 minutes or so, whatever, but we won't get an approval in writing for 3 or 4 days. So it holds up work.
So there's no work happening.
No, and then you ring the hotline of the RBS and it just goes to an answering service, or so there's that as well. Especially with some of the bigger guys, bigger RBSs, that's what happens with the bigger ones. There's no personal; it's all computerised and it's all systemised, which is great for project homes and all that type of stuff. But for the smaller guys, it becomes a challenge.
Yeah. What happens if you were to continue building in, the inspections happen, but you haven't received your confirmation or something in writing, but you're continuing on with the project?
And it wasn't passed?
Well, maybe. Or what if it's not passed, or if an inspection is missed?
Look, we have seen it before, and especially with some of the takeover jobs that we've done, where the builder has done that. Typical, slab where there was the Rio wasn't overlapping correctly,
right.
But they ended up pouring, and then at the end, the builder's gone insolvent halfway through. So then we've picked it up, and then we've built the relationship, and the building surveyor has said, yeah, look, I didn't pass the steel because of this reason. So that becomes a huge problem. So then, as a rectifying builder and the builder that's taken over the job, okay, well then you have to start looking at scans, X-rays, destructive exploratory works.
To either find out what's there or...
Yeah. And the other issue is a lot of, even with that information on hand, you have to have an engineer involved, and the engineer sometimes are very hesitant to sign off. So then the RBS won't sign off that.
Yep.
So then this is where you hear the stories, the house has to get knocked down,
because it missed didn't pass an earlier stage.
Missed a crucial, inspection.
Yep.
Frames, they'll miss, if you haven't got double start under a girder or triple start or whatever it's been called for. We've seen that where the guys haven't put it in, where the inspector said, hey guys, you haven't put, this needs this. And sometimes the documentation doesn't show what it's required, or an engineer's missed it or so forth, but the inspector's picked it up. It's not because of they didn't know or whatever, they followed what the plans and documentations are. So that sometimes, and the guys are, in today's day and age, we try to push everything out because it's so important, the next progress payment.
Yep.
And so, especially with the project homes, and then they
constantly
can get
building to a plan too, and sometimes you need to take a step back and go, hang on.
Yep.
Should it be that way or not?
That's right.
Yep. Is there anything about relating to building permits that you wish people understood better, be it clients or builders or building surveyors?
Oh, good question. I think if I put my consumer hat on, I'd want an RBS to be more involved with me and take me by the hand and say,
as a homeowner,
these are the pitfalls.
Project for the first or second time.
Be comfortable. We're there to inspect for you. We'll ensure that the regulated inspections are done, and that's done too as per what it's supposed to be.
Yep.
I think, again, I can only stress is the communication and that first, the team that you build, with them at the start. Put my builder hat on, same. I think it's just about the communication. Yeah. We want to have ease of contact. If you're the RBS on this project, we want to know that we can pick up the phone and say, hey, Sam, we disagree with what your inspector said, or can you tell us, is it all passed? We know the inspector was out there this morning. We haven't heard back. We need to pour, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So we want to have that rapport with you.
I think there's time extensions to a construction project it wouldn't be an uncommon complaint.
No, well, permits are 12 months, I think.
Okay.
And as long as you're on top of that, you can extend them for a further 12 months very easily. It becomes difficult when they've expired.
Yep.
That's then the RBS can actually, and they're in there quite right, to ask for a complete new application.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and the other thing about time as well is there are a number of ways that a project can be delayed, and the couple of days before you get the response from the building surveyor, it's only a couple of days, but there's a few inspections. It's around a couple of days each time. And then maybe there's a delay on supply of materials or a trade availability too. And suddenly a couple of days here and there, you start talking about it's adding weeks to the project.
It can
too.
Yeah, it certainly can, because yourself, the weather in Melbourne can change overnight, and then with the delays,
you've missed your window to pull.
Missed your window, yeah.
Or a quote that you had for some materials for the project as well is no longer current, and you have to go and get it.
That's right. Again. They're probably the extreme issues, but they do happen.
Yep.
And especially a lot of that will happen with owner builders as well. So owner builders is another kettle of fish, where we've seen a number of projects gone south because of the fact that they haven't either had the experience and the RBS, or they've had a fallout with the RBS so many times.
Yep.
And it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think, thinking back to that relationship then between the builder, the client, the homeowner, and the RBS. Designers too. Perhaps it's a builder, when they're talking to a client, encourage them to ask questions of all of those different parties too. Now, going to the building surveyor and say, hey, help me understand your role in this process. Speaking to the designers and saying, we're working with this RBS and they've given me their checklist to give you a head start on making sure that the design, when it goes through for that permit application, there's less chance of it being bounced back for something has the wrong title or it's not in the format that they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, the architectural designer should have the basics as this is what we will require.
Yep.
And then from there, have all the other documentation and discuss with the RBS. That especially when the homes, if you're building a first home, but not with a project home builder, and you've got the RBS involved, they're looking at it. Your designer or architect's probably sending them twice or three times before a final plan.
Yep.
So it just reduces the stress, reduces the information log, and there is a lot of stuff that they require where sometimes, you just look at it and you go, wow, there's 3 or 4 pages of small print there that, so, and the other thing too that the building surveyor will also pick up is, performance solutions. That's another avenue of the building permit where, sometimes it needs a building performance solution, especially with step-down balconies and so forth, or no freeboard, and people have missed it.
And what's the builder's role there? Is it to fix it, to highlight it, or is it more to educate?
Again, I think it's a bit of everything, yeah. Sometimes the builders will miss it because whether it's lack of experience or we've got too many jobs on, we're relying for the guys in the office to pick it up.
Yep.
And again, we can only boil it down to experience or lack of. and the knowledge. Where you look at it and you go, that might need a performance solution on that, or that won't work. And they're the questions that, we have to ask. And as builders, we have to ask that. And we have to push back. We have to say to the building surveyor or the designer, guys, this doesn't work. How do you expect me to build this and comply?
Yes, the client has engaged these parties, but it doesn't mean that you can't then... Well, you're building to the plan, but if you see something that's not compliant or not right, then ask the questions and go, how do we make this right?
That's right. So, it's about
those relationships.
Yeah, relationship, and as I say, the journey. I always call it the journey.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time today, Steve.
Thank you for having me, Sat. As Master Builders.
It's been good. Yeah. And thanks for tuning in to the Building Master Builders podcast. We've covered a broad range of topics today. A lot about building permits, a little bit on inspections. But it's important to remember, and you talked about it too all the way through, that every project, every build is different.
Yep.
And getting the right advice for your specific circumstances is key, whether it's from the designer or the building surveyor or from master builders too.
Yep.
On that, I would encourage our members as well to follow up with our advisory team for some of that expert guidance that's informed by real industry experience. If you have questions about building permits, becoming a registered builder, or the resources available to our members, you can reach out to us at techandreg@mbav.com.au or call us on 9411 4555. Thanks for your time today, Steve.
Thanks, Sat. Thanks for having us.
It's been good.
This podcast was recorded on Wurundjeri land. MBV pays respect to elders past, present and emerging.